This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'm out here in Las Vegas and I'm joined by trainer Tony Sims for what is only the second time in person. Tony, how are you doing?
Is it really?
It is, yes.
Oh, because we do the
Zooms.
the Zoom, don't we? That's it, yeah. Oh, nice one. You all right, Ann? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. As I say, second time. I think first time was, I think it was a Ted Cheeseman workout in the Matchroom gym. So I came down, that must have been about 2 years ago now.
Yeah, really.
So time flies, mate. But yeah, obviously out here, Las Vegas, Martin J. Ward returns. You've had a very active gym throughout the pandemic, Tony, but how excited for Martin to finally be able to get out?
Yeah, well, this fight, was on and off, and he's been waiting for quite a while for this final eliminator to come along, and finally we've got it over the line, and he's been in the gym the whole time through lockdown training, and now they're like, we're a couple of days away, and I know that he can't wait to get in there, and if he wins this fight, he's only he's mandatory for the world title, and that's his dream. So yeah, he's nearly there now.
Tony, what do you think it's been like for Martin to see the rest of the gym all being able to get out, be active, and he's had to wait for so long? For as happy as he would have been for his campmates, have you seen any sense of frustration that he's had to wait this little bit longer?
Yeah, he hasn't said anything. He's obviously pleased for the boys getting out, and he knew this fight was coming. He'd been ordered the fight, and he knew it was coming. It was just when, and sometimes obviously what you're saying, the waiting and the frustration sets in. But he was offered the fight in Las Vegas. It could have been in the UK, and I think if you speak to British fighters, probably 95% of them would say it's their dream to fight in Las Vegas. It's the capital of boxing, the boxing world, and even though he's waited this long to fight, what a fight to put together for him. Final eliminator for the IBF in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay. A great, old arena with all these great fights that have happened here in the past, and Martin, he's a bit of an historian, he loves his boxing, and I think, the wait was worth it in his eyes, because now he's got the platform to box on the undercard of like Haney-Linares, a great fight, and he's got the opportunity to fight in Las Vegas, which I always remember Ricky Burns saying in the gym, like he said, I've had 50 odd fights, free-weight world champion. I've always wanted to box in Las Vegas and never got the opportunity. So, most fighters go their whole career without fighting out here, and Martin's finally here. So, I think he's buzzing, and he's raring to go, and he's got a tricky fight. Azinga's a really, really decent fighter. He's tricky, slippery, southpaw. He knows what he's doing in there, and if you watched his last fight against Rakimov, he was winning the fight clearly up until he got nailed with that one shot. So, it's going to be an hard night's work for Martin. But it's like I said to him, up at this level now, final eliminator, world level, they're all really hard fights. And if you're going to look to be a world champion, then you've got to come through these fights. And he knows it's going to be an hard night's work, but he's trained hard for it, and he's ready for it.
Martin hasn't fought for about 15 months. Azinga hasn't fought for around 2 years, maybe a bit longer. Do you feel like the ring inactivity might play a part, at least in the early rounds?
Maybe, yeah. The first couple of rounds, they're both bound to be, a little bit ring rusty. But I fought that through the lockdown in some fighters that I've seen that have been out for a year or longer, and some of them have just got straight at it, so you can't really tell, but there must be a little bit of ring rust in both of them. But as I say, Martin's had a great camp, he's had great sparring, and as I said earlier, he's not been out the gym at all in the past year that he's been inactive, so that'll stand him in good stead. It ain't as though he had like 6 months off of training, or maybe just 6 months of just running and no boxing. He's literally been in the gym, sparring, pad work, bag. He's been in there every day. So in that retrospect, I think that'll help him in this fight, that he's just kept on it the whole time.
In Azinga's case, as you mentioned, he's an awkward opponent, southpaw, as you say. Is this going to be very much like a chess match, or are you guys planning for an aggressive approach from Martin that will see him force for stoppage?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was in Taylor and Kevin Barry's gym earlier, and we were talking about that, and you would think, looking at the way they both box, it'd be a complete chess match. They're both counter punchers, so and they're both in their own right pretty awkward. They're hard to hit and elusive, but sometimes when you get a fight like this, when there's so much on the line, it could turn into a really good fight. You don't know, and I'm sure like Azinga's going to be wanting to get to that world title mandatory position as much as Martin. So you just don't know, but like on paper, like you say, it looks like it's going to be like a chess match fight.
Moving forward and away from Martin, we've got Conor Benn out here as well, making some noise. Seen him doing the rounds with some interviews earlier. Just talking about Conor's reasoning for coming out to Vegas himself.
Well, he's commentating on DAZN on the weekend anyway, so he's got a little job there, and he started his camp this week. He's looking like he's going to fight on July the 31st, so we was always looking to start his camp this week to give him a 10-week camp. So he's good for a bit of profile out here. He ain't been out here before to Las Vegas, so we've sort of been doing the tour of the gyms this week, different gyms, and he's built his pro. He's saying to me, what's the weird feeling is he's walking into like American gyms and there's fighters in there coming up and asking for his photographs, and he said it's really strange, like when he's in the UK, obviously, people know who he is, but it's strange for him to come to a different country, miles away from the UK, and everybody know who he is, and he's had every gym that he's walked in this week, he's had a really good reception from all the young fighters in there, and the experienced fighters. Caleb Plant was talking to him today about his career, and obviously Lopez, they met up, and so it's been a good high profile thing for him to be over here. But obviously he's working on commentary as well. So I just think he's enjoying the first week of back in camp, and at the same time, meeting everybody and trying different gyms.
In terms of the knowledge aspect, how much will Conor take away from being in and around so many top-level fighters, but also just visiting the different American gyms, seeing the different trainers and the advice that they give to their fighters? How much will Conor pick up from those guys? Because I know in the past you've said he's like a sponge with yourself, so coming out here, I can imagine it's like a dream for him.
Yeah, I think he's been quite surprised by it. As I said, he's been quite surprised by, the people who know him, and like you say, we've got a spar lined up with Ugas tomorrow, so it's a bit of experience spar for him there, and he's been working hard out here. Been running every morning, and been doing pads every day. So he's been training hard out here. He ain't just been sitting around, but it's just a great experience for him really to be, as I said earlier, in the capital of the boxing world, Las Vegas. Is a great experience, and I think he's really been enjoying it.
You mentioned you've got the date lined up for him in around 10 weeks' time away. Any news on an opponent yet, Tony? I know Conor's been calling out pretty much every name under the sun.
Yeah, no, I ain't got a name, because obviously I'm going to wait for Eddie Earn to come out here. I think he comes out here tomorrow, and then we've got a meeting this week. I'll sit down with him this week, and we'll just go through opponents and exact dates and that. But we'll just look to see what the best opponent is for Conor at the moment, and as we see last time with the Vargas fight, I sort of chose that opponent to give him rounds in the fight, and it never worked out. So maybe we go back to where it was before, and maybe look to someone to give him some rounds, but. Sometimes that's easier said than done, because when he connects, He's obviously got his dad's Nigel's power in both hands. So when he connects, he can literally put anybody away in his division. So, yeah, I'll sit down with Eddie and we'll go through the opponents and just see what Eddie wants to do, really, what direction we want to go for the next fight.
We know Conor had a great buzz after his victory against Sammy Vargas. As I say, he was calling out Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, David Avnesian, you name him, he called them out. Now that buzz has settled a bit and he's back into camp mode, is it more realistic that we see somebody else who's just another little step up on a Sammy Vargas instead of the guys like the Amir Khans or Kell Brooks who had achieved so much during their time in the sport, or are they still realistic possibilities?
I don't think he called Kell Brook out because I think he's quite matey with Kell, but he called Amir Khan out definitely, and I think that's a fight that can be made. Obviously, as his coach, I want to give him a couple of more learning fights before that sort of fight, but if Amir Khan's still fighting, and Conor has another 2, maybe 3 fights, then we'll definitely look to do that fight. Obviously, it could turn out to be a big pay-per-view show, that fight. So Conor needs a little bit more building, and I know the direction that I want to put him into. So I'll follow the direction, the plan that we've been working towards. But Khan's a definite possibility if that can be made in a couple of fights' time.
Now, I saw Showtime Sean Porter probably about 7 or 8 days ago. I asked him about Conor. He said if the right offer was made, he'd consider it. But he also said your eyes are bigger than your stomach. So your thoughts on those comments, Tony?
Yeah, he's another fighter as well. Great fighter, Sean Porter. As I say, the plan for me, the direction that I want to point Conor in, is to get him a couple of more learning fights before we look at them sort of opponents. But they're opponents definitely next year that we'll be looking at, and by the time we get round to like an Amir Khan or Sean Porter fight, then I know that he'll be ready. But I just need to cut 2 or 3 more learning fights for him, and then he'll be ready to go.
How difficult is it to manage the expectations and guide the career of somebody like Conor, Tony, when he has had a terrific couple of wins back to back during the pandemic? Everybody's talking about him as being a potential future pay-per-view star in the UK. And the want to see him in those fights, and then you'll have broadcasters who might start to pressure you a bit more. Eddie, Matchroom might want to see him step up a bit quicker. Is it difficult to manage that?
No, not really, because I know what you're saying there, but Eddie knows the direction that I want to put him in, and from day one I've guided his career, and like Nigel, his dad's a good friend of mine. We go back a lot of years, and before he went back to Australia, when he left him with me, he said, "Can you look after my son?" And I believe that I've done that, and I don't feel like I want to let Nigel down as a friend as well, because he's left his son over here. They're across the other side of the world, so I'm just going to do exactly what I want to do and put him in the direction that I want to put him in. Nigel always backs me up on that and says, "You just do what you think's right," and up until now, I've made the right decisions for him. But boxing's an hard sport, and I think that Conor Benn has got the potential, to go all the way to a world title. And if he does that, like you're saying there, he could become a big pay-per-view star. But it's like before them 2 fights come about, and he hadn't boxed up at that level. I remember saying to Eddie Hearn, "Listen, I want to push him on to the next level now. I don't want him to fight around the level that he's fighting at." And I'm not sure that Eddie was believing what I was saying, because I was obviously seeing him in the gym spar and working with him every day, and I just see like within it like a jigsaw. When you put a jigsaw together and it starts being complete, he started to come together in the gym, and I was putting him in with decent fighters to spar with. As you know, my gym's got they're all decent fighters. I was bringing other sparring in, and he was coming on at a fast pace. So it was my idea to step him up to the next level, and then again. But now, obviously, because of the results, as you say, like everyone's on board with that now, and everyone's thinking, yeah, you know what, he's going to go to the next level. But I've sort of known for a little while, what level he's going to go at, and what you got to realise is he's got quite a smart boxing brain on him, and he's learned a great deal in sparring to become like we're good fighters. And he's got quite an intelligent boxing brain on him. And his jabs, he's got a nice jab on him. And also he's got Nigel's power in both hands. So not only can he outmaneuver you and out-jab you and out-box you, but now he's grown into a 24-year-old man. When he lands the shots now, he can just put you away with either hand. So he's a very dangerous man to fight, because not only are you going to be wary of his power, but you're going to be wary of his boxing ability as well, and his general awareness when he's in the ring. And that's what makes him so dangerous, because he can do both.
Connor, Tony, moving forwards again away from Connor. John Ryder, obviously waiting for an official announcement with regards to the David Morrell fight. Have you got any update for us as to where things currently stand with that?
Well, we was given a date of June the 26th in Minnesota on a PBC show. I mean, obviously the WBA have ordered this fight because John's obviously mandatory for it, and but nothing's been announced, which is quite frustrating, really. Obviously, John's been in camp for this fight, and like we're edging towards June the 26th. You know, getting to the end of this month, and sort of nothing's been announced, and there's been no contract signed. So that's another meeting I've got to do with Eddie once he flies in tomorrow to see actually what's going on, because you know, this has been going on for a long time now, this fight, and John's sort of been. He was going to fight Lennox Allen last year for this regular title, when it, you know, we was waiting for Canelo to vacate it, and then Lennox Allen was the interim champion. So the WBA said John Ryder to fight Lennox Allen, and as you know, Lennox Allen then boxed David Morrell, and he lost on points for the interim, which made David Morrell the WBA champion, WBA interim champion. Then he defended the interim title and come in 2 or 3 pound overweight, which he should have been stripped of the interim title. But so instead he just fought a non-title fight and won in 3 rounds. And then all of a sudden, the WBA have just handed in the regular title. It's all just really strange. While John's still sitting there waiting. So it's all really, really odd. And now we've got to, you know, the WBA have mandated John. The fight's supposed to be going on June the 26th. Now no contracts have come through. There's no announcements at all of what's going on. So really, we're sort of a little bit in the dark. It's a bit frustrating, really, because, you know, John's been in camp for a little while now, and he's getting in good shape, and obviously he just wants his fight, you know. So that's a meeting I've got to have with Eddie when he flies over tomorrow, and see what's going on there.
Tony, do you guys have a cut-off point then as to when you might have to turn around and say to John, we're going to look at other routes, just because he has been in camp for so long waiting to get out?
Well, that's what, you know, that's a decision that Eddie's got to do, really. Like, when I speak to Eddie tomorrow, he's obviously in charge of the situation with the WBA and the PBC, so you know, that's a decision that Eddie will tell me. But it's just frustrating that you're training away for a suspected date, and just like nothing's happening, you know, nothing. So yeah, obviously Eddie will fill me in this week and tell me what's going on, but hopefully it will still go ahead, you know, and that's what we're hoping anyway.
So only moving forwards once again, Ted Cheeseman, what is the latest with Ted?
Ted Cheeseman, I think he's going to probably defend the British title against his mandatory challenger, Troy Williamson, probably, and that'll get his mandatory out of the way, and then after that fight, we'll just decide what's next. But that'll probably be looking like his next fight against Troy Williamson. What
do you make of Troy then as a fighter?
Oh yeah, Troy's a good fighter. You know, he was on GB. I remember when he was on there. He's a good fighter. You know, he's unbeaten. He had that great win last time out against Kieran Smith, and that was a 50-50 fight going in. You know, and he had a great win against him. So he deserves his shot. He's mandatory challenger, so he deserves his shot. So I think that will probably be Ted's next fight. But obviously, again, I need to speak to Eddie this week and just sit down and make a decision on that.
That domestic scene, we've spoken about it enough, Tony, but obviously with Anthony Fowler, Scott Fitzgerald's return, Sam Egginton with a win this past weekend, are any of those fights in your mind, or are you guys thinking one defence and then move on to European level?
Just think just take one fight at a time. He's got an hard defence against Troy. You can't overlook him. He's been a great amateur and he's unbeaten professional, so you can't overlook him. You can't say what's after that. He's got a mandatory challenger that he's got to deal with, and then if he comes through that, and then just speak to Eddie and look at his next fight. But at the minute, he's got to be focused on Troy.
Moving forward once again, Felix Cash. But how is Felix doing? Is he back in camp now after celebrating his victory against Denzel Bentley?
Yeah, he's been. Funny enough, I was talking to him today. He was on the running machine today, and he comes straight back into camp as soon as I get back from here. So he's training away at home, and he'll probably be looking to defend the British title next as well. He ain't got a mandatory challenger at the moment, so that's what he'll be looking to do next. But hopefully we'll secure a date and for his next fight. And I'm excited about Felix Cash. I think I've said all along, he's a good fighter and he's a dangerous fighter. He can punch, and he's fast hands. He can box, and he's fearless as well. So, I think he's got a great future in front of him, Felix, and I'm looking forward to his next few fights and where he can go, because I think he's a fighter that can go on to world level. He's got all the ability to go on to world level, and in that division, the middleweight division, that British and European level, he's got a great chance of, getting through that level and then getting onto world level. And with Andrade, he's talking about moving up a weight as well. So I think Felix in the last WBO ratings was like number 14, and I think Denzel Bentley was number 8. So I expect Felix to move right up, say, into the top 8. So he'll be heading towards that sort of top maybe 5-6 category, and if Andrade does move up in the next year, which he should probably move up in the next year, then Felix can be there and thereabouts, really.
After his win against Denzel Bentley, we saw some people calling for a potential fight with Liam Williams on the back of Liam's unsuccessful bout with Demetrius Andrade. Would there be any interest there, Tony, of a bout between Felix and Liam Williams?
I don't know, really. I think Liam, he's just lost that great fight with Andrade. Does he really want to come back to British level at the minute? It's like when John Ryder lost to Callum Smith, would I have brought him back down to fight for a British title? Once you're up at that level, you want to really stay up that level and try and get another shot at it, and for Liam, who in my eyes is a very, very good fighter, world level fighter, would he even want to risk coming down to British level to fight Felix Cash? Felix Cash is a good fighter, but Felix Cash ain't on the world level scene at the minute, so would he even want to risk that fight himself? At the end of the day, boxing's a business, and he's up on world level. There's a chance he can get another shot even, if Andrade does move up a weight, there's a chance he can get another shot. So, I don't know whether there's anything in that fight, but you never know in boxing.
Tony, just away from your own fighters, just get your thoughts on a few things. Start off with this weekend's headline event, Devin Haney, Haney-Linares. Just your thoughts on it?
Oh yeah, I was talking about this earlier. I think it's a really good fight. As we all know, Linares in the UK, where I had Kevin Mitchell fight him, he's a brilliant fighter. He's been a brilliant fighter. Before sort of Canelo, sort of a few years back, before Canelo really took the pound for pound mantle, I loved watching Linares, and even before Kevin Mitchell fought him, I used to watch him and look at his moves and show my young fighters, you know what I mean? Because he's a brilliant fighter. But obviously, looking at Devin Haney, he's the young gun coming through, and I think this fight is a brilliant fight. It's a brilliant bit of matchmaking for Devin Haney at this stage in his career, because no matter how he wins, whether he wins a tight decision or whether he wins clearly. I just think that the experience he'll gain from being in the ring with Linares is like, that's what will take him to the next level that he wants to go to, because he hasn't really boxed anyone in Linares' league, up until yet. And then saying that, on the flip side as well, by the way, if Linares can put in a vintage performance, you don't know, because he's been such of a good fighter that he's still got that ability. If he's got that mindset still of wanting to become world champion again, you don't know. This could turn into a really, really brilliant fight to watch. And but obviously I've got to favour Haney as the young gun coming through. But I'm looking forward to the actual fight and watching it. They've both got great skill set and they both can punch. And, I think it's going to be a great fight.
Tony, just quickly having to stop and start there before that time's out. I've never actually asked you about it. When you was in the corner for Kevin and when you was guiding him in that fight with Haney-Linares, that happens to be one of my favourite fights, which really kind of kick-started my interest in boxing. Do you still have any frustrations over that with regards to the referee? When Kevin's eye had started to swell up, I think it was after the 6th round with Rawley's, when he should have gone to the cards. Do you guys have any frustrations over that? Because I know Kevin would have been ahead of that time.
I did at the time, but time's a healer at the time, and I did at the time because obviously we knew Kevin was like 2 rounds up on the judges' cards. And if the referee had stopped the fight through the eye injury, which probably it should have been stopped through the eye injury, it was like grotesque, that was. And, he'd have been champion of the world and a win over Linares. But listen, things are meant to happen in life. Look at what Linares went on to achieve after that, So, he went on to achieve history. And really that was Kevin's sort of last big fight. But even in camp, like sometimes when you train fighters for big fights like that, the camp never went well for Kevin, do you know what I mean, in that fight. Nothing went right for him. And sometimes you can have camps like when he fought the final eliminator before that against the Mexican, everything went right in camp. It couldn't have gone any better, he'd done everything right. And his weight was good and his sparring was brilliant. And for the Linares, I had Ricky Burns fighting in Hidalgo near Mexico, and against Figueroa, and they were sort of in camp together. So I took Kevin to Texas with me for the sparring, and we had some good sparring lined up at that time. And his first spar there, he cut his nose wide open. It was just a freak injury. He had he had the bar head guard on, which you wear them because you don't get these injuries. And he just had an horrendous cut across his nose, and it just opened right up. So the 3 weeks we was there, he couldn't spar. And then on the last week, he got ill as well. He got a cough. He got ill. And I had to send him home because obviously he needed to go to a doctor and, get seen. So I've had to send him home when he should have been training with Ricky in camp. He's got a cut on his nose, he can't spar. So that was 3 weeks, and we still had another, I think it was 4 weeks or 5 weeks to go to the fight when he got back. And he was ill for a couple of weeks, just everything went wrong really, do you know what I mean? And obviously he was in the fight, he had Linares on the floor, and as you say, the eye injury probably should have been stopped. But there's nothing you can do about history. It was history, and as I say, Linares went on to be a great fighter. But I don't know whether Kevin's ever had regrets over that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he has, but he's never really harped on it, really.
Tony, moving forward once again, a brilliant fight which was announced the other day in the welterweight division, caught everybody by surprise. Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence Jr. Tony, did he catch you by surprise?
Oh, most definitely. I never see that coming, and I don't think anyone did really. I think we're probably thinking as Manny Pacquiao, maybe he never fight again. He's doing his political career, and I suppose we thought he'd never fight, and all of a sudden, bang, Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao fight. And I mean, everyone's talking about it, and making Spence a massive favourite, which he should be, because, like I say again, he's like the young gun coming through, and he's a good fighter and fast hands. But listen, Pacquiao's been in our decade that we've lived through. He's been one of the best fighters ever. Do you know what I mean? So you don't know with Pacquiao. Again, like we're talking about Linares, they've only got to turn a vintage performance in, and he could do the business. Yeah. You never know. So in boxing, but obviously I'm making Spence the favourite.
And then final thing, a couple of final things, just to get your thoughts on this past weekend. The UK has an undisputed champion, Josh Taylor, with a terrific win against Jose Ramirez. What did you make of their bout?
Oh, brilliant fight. I mean, what a fight to win the undisputed championships of the world, and it was a great fight. I mean, we watched it downstairs in the casino, and like every round they were slotting in big shots. Both of them was, big shots. And I mean, he pulled it out of the bag, putting him on the floor. He was unlucky not to. I mean, the referee, he was unlucky not to stop him, really, give him a long time in between the counts. But I mean, what a performance! And I've known Josh since he was amateur. I remember him on the GB, and to be undisputed champion of the world, what a feat! And fair play to him. He's in every fight he's been in. He stepped up to the plate and he's done the business, and congratulations to him.
To have accomplished that in only 18 fights as well, Tony, as you say, you knew him from his amateur days when he was a very successful amateur as well. One thing that I'm seeing over social media, a lot of people talking about back home, maybe he isn't getting the recognition that he deserves, because it is a huge achievement in this era to become the first full-belt undisputed champion from the UK as well. What have you made of it? Do you think he's been receiving the right amount of recognition?
Well, it wasn't televised in the UK, was it? So I think that was a bit of a disappointment, because no one, obviously we was lucky enough to be in a casino and watch it on the TV screens downstairs. But, for that sort of fight not to be televised in Britain, it's just a shame that a lot of the public really never see it live, because it was such a great fight as well. And like you say, the recognition, I don't believe he has got the recognition or the attention he should have had, even though it's been all over social media and all in the papers. But it still don't beat watching it live on your TV screens in the UK. And all them Scottish fans, they would have loved to have seen that fight. And they're fanatical Scottish fans. As you know, I had Ricky Burns won a three-weight world title, and I think that's the best atmosphere I've ever been in my life. What an atmosphere they create, and you can imagine how frustrated they must have been not watching that live. And he deserves all the recognition in the world, and I'm really pleased for him, and hopefully his next fight, they're talking about him moving up to take the Crawford fight. Hopefully that gets plastered all over the TVs back home, and that'd be a great fight as well if that gets made.
Just want to get your thoughts on that, Tony. There's still talks, Jack Catterall being his mandatory, he stepped aside so this fight could happen between himself and Jose. But if that wasn't next and he did step up, he did face Crawford, what do you make of Josh's chances at 147 against Terence?
Well, his performance the other night tells you that he's got everything in the locker. He can punch, he can box, he can take a great shot, because Ramirez hit him with some great shots, and they just bounced off of him. So he's got everything in his locker. He's got the speed to give anybody a good fight. He's massive on the weight. He looks like a big welterweight anyway. So that's going to be a great fight. I mean, Crawford, he's a pound for pounder, and that was the first corner I'd done with Ricky Burns when he fought Crawford. In just when he won his first world title, you could just see how special he was. His distancing, the cleverness, how he can switch so easy from southpaw to orthodox. He just does it. He's a great fighter to watch, and that's a fantastic fight. I'd love to watch that fight, and I hope Josh gets it.
From your time in Ricky's corner again and through his preparations for that Crawford fight, how much do you think Terence has improved since then to the point we're at now?
Yeah, Terence is he's improved massively, and we watched him step up through the weights, and he's such a dangerous fighter. We see Kell Brook, who's a great fighter from Britain, and you see the demolition job he done on Kell, and I thought Kell would be in there for quite a few rounds, and and have a good fight with him, but he just jumped in, bang, it was all over, and that shows you how dangerous he is, and Josh Taylor's dangerous as well. So that fight, I hope he does move up and does that fight, because I think it'll create a massive public interest in the States, massively, not just at home but in the States. So that's one to look forward to, I think.
Tony, final thing to get your thoughts on. Last week we saw Deontay Wilder have a successful outcome from his arbitration case with regards to a trilogy bout with Tyson Fury. Firstly, just your reaction to it when it first came out, and your thoughts on seeing Wilder Fury 3 instead of an undisputed bout between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, I, like everybody else, was disappointed. The fight looked like it was made. I'm sure Eddie Hearn worked tirelessly in trying to get that fight done, and I'm sure they're both disappointed, really. I think Tyson Fury was up for fighting Joshua and vice versa, and he was the fight that everybody wanted to see. The whole world wanted to see, but as you say, Wilder's won his arbitration battle, and he's got the fight next. Do I see him beating Tyson Fury? No, I don't see him beating him. I think it's a shame that he never maybe let them two fight, with him being a mandatory for the winner, maybe getting himself back in the ring and fighting. He's got a new trainer, getting himself back in the ring, bit of confidence, and then fight the winner of Fury Joshua. Because if he did have a fight or two in the interim and built himself back up again, I think the winner of Fury Joshua would be another massive fight against Wilder. And so yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment, really. But listen, if Fury comes through Wilder like he should do, and Joshua does his mandatory, comes through that, then the fight's still on the table. So hopefully we do get it sooner or later.
What do you make of AJ Usyk if that one is to be the case? I know Eddie did an interview the other day saying there's still potential for a potential Dillian White rematch, or over here in the States he's looking at potential Luis Ortiz or Andy Ruiz Jr. bouts instead if the Usyk fight doesn't come off, that is. But what would be your thoughts if we did see AJ Usyk?
I would prefer to see Joshua Dillian White. I think everybody would. I don't think Usyk's big enough or power enough to deal with Joshua. I think Joshua stops Usyk, and but obviously the Dillian White Joshua fight, that's always going to be, it's always going to be a grudge fight, always, and it's different personalities, and we've seen Dillian White obviously have a great win last time out in the return fight, and we know, what Dillian brings to the table. He fight anybody. He's a tough guy and can punch, and as we know, he hurt Joshua in the first fight. And he's obviously a lot more experienced himself now, so I'd prefer to see that fight if there was, if Joshua is going to take the next fight. I'd prefer to watch that fight.
Tony, you've worked with AJ, you'll know him personally to some extent. Would he be willing to vacate his WBO title to take on one of those other names as I mentioned?
I don't know, really. I think he'd probably want to keep his WBO belt now, Joshua, because I think what it is now, it's just like, obviously it's the money, but I think he wants to be undisputed. So I think he'll probably want to keep his WBO belt, but he probably will fight Usyk. But I'm saying the fight I'd prefer to see is him versus Dillian White, but he probably will have to do the Usyk fight and get that fight out of the way. But as I said earlier, I just think he'll walk through Usyk. I think he'll be too big and strong for him. I think he'll take him out.
Right, Tony, we will leave that there now. I've taken much more of your time than what I think I bargained for, but I appreciate you sticking with me and sticking through it. I'm going to go and pester your other fighters now for some interviews. Enjoy the rest of your time in Las Vegas, mate. I'm sure I'll see you around. Thank you, Speaks Boxing Social.
Thanks, Andy. Nice seeing you, mate.